I've been working professionally in marketing for over 30 years, and in that time I've worked in 237 different industries. And today on the show I'm going to show you everything I know to successfully market your business. My name's Russell Pearson. This is the Your Consulting Business Podcast, episode 118. Today on the show, we're going to walk you through everything you need to know to market your business. Now, the reality is this is going to be a bit of a long episode. And there are people who market successfully and there are people who don't. The people who market successfully actually get the information that they need to know, they watch it all the way through, and then they implement the lessons that they've learned. And the ones that don't market successfully and blame the world and wonder why they're not going anywhere, don't look at the information, they don't digest the information, and they don't use it. In a moment, I'm going to walk through everything we're going to talk about. But if you are serious about marketing your business, if you are serious about growing your audience, engaging them to want to work with you, then this is an episode that you're either going to watch all the way through or you're going to bookmark so you can come back and watch it again. So on this video, we're going to talk about all sorts of different things. Number one, we're going to talk about what marketing is. We're going to talk about the difference between pure marketing and tactical marketing and which one you should be choosing. We're going to talk about the 4 P's of marketing. That's product, price, place, and promotion. We're going to talk about niches and audiences and when you should be deciding which one to focus on. We're going to talk about market research and how to conduct it. We're going to talk about how to assess your competition and then what you should do about it, how to create a strong brand and then how to manage it. We're going to talk about your USP, your unique selling proposition, and how it's not what a lot of other people are saying. Of course, we're going to be talking about advertising. We're also going to be talking about how you can put an advertisement together, how to create a marketing campaign and what are the components of it. And then we're also going to be talking about the marketing numbers that matter and what you should be tracking. We'll then talk about return on investment, and we won't know our return on investment unless we are tracking those numbers. And finally, we're going to talk about customer retention and how you can engage one customer and keep them for a lifetime of business. We're covering a hell of a lot in this episode. So if you haven't already, grab yourself a cuppa, strap yourself in. We're going to walk you through everything you need to know to market your business. Now let's quickly start by some clarity on what is marketing. Now if I go to the Oxford Dictionary, it has a definition that says that marketing is the activity of presenting, advertising and selling a company's products or services in the best possible way. And there are all sorts of versions in the dictionary that talk about what marketing is. But in my world, there are only 2 clear ways to look at marketing. So let's look at the first one, which is pure marketing. Now, pure marketing I see as the creation of a market. That's actually where you create a want or a need that didn't exist before. And that's kind of like the purest version of marketing. And that's what a lot of the theorists and those people who are professors of marketing will talk about. How do we create that desire? And I don't mean like a desire that was already there and we sort of rev it up. We're actually creating something out of nothing. That's pure marketing. Now, that's not the sort of marketing that I suggest most businesses should do. In fact, that sort of marketing is reserved for people who are trying to start a movement, maybe governments, maybe large organizations who already have saturation globally. They're trying to create something new in a market or create a new desire that didn't exist there before. But the second piece is tactical marketing. And tactical is really about identifying what are the things that we need to do to move someone from a stranger, or maybe we'll talk about it as a suspect, and I'll talk about that in just a moment, but a stranger through to a prospect. And so the way I look at strangers is like we want to identify who of these strangers, people we don't know, are those that we suspect would be ideal for what we want to offer. So ideally they're suspects. So we suspect that if we were to offer this particular type of person or individual or organization what we've got, then we suspect that it would be right for them. And there are a number of steps that we move through until not only do they become a lead, but they become a prospect. And so the difference on the way through is that they become a lead. So suspects, leads, and prospects. The lead is someone that we have contact details for. They are known in our world and we can communicate with them. Whereas the prospect has a known need or want, right? They are aware of us, and we are aware of them, and then we're going to talk to them about moving to the sales process. Now, whether you're doing an online business or you have an offline business, in the way that you actually finalize those sales, the prospect is really either about the person identifying that you are an option for them that they are considering to make a decision on, right? That's a prospect in the case where we don't have control over it, or we are having a conversation with them to move them through a sales process. That's a prospect. A suspect is a stranger, someone we don't know, and it's a broader market in that case, which is the faceless market that we tactically market to. So when I'm thinking about these two areas, we have this faceless market that is a lot of different individuals. These are different individuals. And we think about them in a broader space. This is the market in general, the audience. And when we think of prospects, they are down to an individual level. They have a specific want or a specific need that we can work with them on. Now, before we get too stuck into the how to market, let's talk about why to market. And if you've done any sort of marketing before, or if you've had any education around marketing, you've probably seen this diagram. And that, believe it or not, is a funnel. And this is a marketing funnel. And there are steps that we work a stranger through so that they move to become a prospect and then through to become a client and customer. And so at the top end, the top of the funnel, we have people come in to the funnel. And these are people we suspect, so suspect, could be the sort of people we want to work with. And there are lots of them. There are all these lots and lots of different people, and there'll be like more people than you need because a lot of them won't be right. And we want to move them through a process to start qualifying them. And so through the process of qualifying, moving them through the funnel, they will become a lead. And I'll talk later about how we can use mechanisms like lead magnets to identify, to qualify someone. A lead is a person who could use what you've got because they have some qualifying criteria. But what I like about a lead and how to define a lead is that we have some form of contact details, whether that means we have a phone number or we have an email address. I don't really like qualifying a lead by having a contact on social media because that's not our owned list. This is a list that we've created for ourselves, whereas if it's a contact on Facebook or LinkedIn, that could actually be taken away from us at some point. So having a lead list that's off those social platforms is how you go about building a list, but we'll talk more about that later. And we move them from lead into prospect. So prospect through the identification that we have what they want. Now, a lot of people say we have what they need, but a lot of people don't want to buy what they need. You know, good health is something everybody needs to live longer, right? Needs to do a certain thing, but a lot of people don't like to eat healthy, all right? So, I mean, it's hard to sell health some of those times, but it's very easy to sell food that just tastes good and don't worry about the guilt. So what people want is really the first place that you want to engage people with, and then you ideally give them what they need through the process, but you engage them at their wants. Now, once we have someone who does want what we've got, then we're moving from the marketing, so this is marketing, that whole area is the marketing, into the sales. And that's this area here. And there'll be a sales process that you'll move people through to spit out. Let me just move that there. So marketing, people will spit out at the other end. And ideally, you'll have a sales process for your business to help people move them through there. Now, I work with a lot of consultants in the Forge Business Program, and we've got a sales process specifically for those people that basically moves them from some form of qualification. So we qualify that person more specifically to the problem that they want solved. We help them diagnose it. We diagnose, and then we design a solution. And there's some specific steps that we use inside the Forge to help people do that. Again, that's sales. That's not marketing. Now, this is the aspect we move people through, but why do we do that? Because you could just sell. Why wouldn't you just sell to everybody? Because that person's not primed to buy yet. So really what this whole aspect does, or this whole process does, is it primes the suspect to become a prospect and be ready to buy. So that says prime. And now you could go out and cold call people. You could knock on a lot of doors, and eventually you will find people who are already primed to buy what you've got, but they've been primed by some other market. They've been primed by other competitors. They've been primed by a social conversation that's been happening. But this is a process we control to engage people where they're at, move them through a process to be primed, to be prospects. Where's prospects? There. And then we take them through a sales process. So why do we do marketing? To prime people to make it easy to sell. So now that we understand what marketing is, we are going to focus in on the tactical side, which is instead of creating something out of nothing, we're going to identify our product and service and actually connect it with a specific audience that wants what we've got. So to do that, we're going to talk about the traditional 4 P's of marketing. Now, these have been a framework for marketing for as long as I've actually been in the business. That doesn't mean that they are the be-all and end-all. And funnily enough, most people don't reference these, although they should. And the first one is product. Now, whether you're selling a service or a product, in other words, whatever fashion the outcome is delivered in, and this is your vehicle. This is the thing in how you deliver what you deliver. And the product is important, but it can often be less important than the outcome that it's delivering. But it's the product is the vehicle you've chosen to drive the person from a space where they don't have what they want to a place where they have what they want. So a product should always be a delivery vehicle for getting them an outcome. And I see a lot of people start with product, and so that's where I'm going to start. Most people get into business because they already have a service they want to deliver or a product they want to create. I think it is far more useful to actually look at a specific audience and say, what do they need? But with that, we often fall into the trap of creating something we don't enjoy working on. So that's why I'm happy to start in this product place, because it means that people came to their business from a point of already doing something they were good at or that they enjoyed. And often those two things work hand in hand. So we'll start with product, but then we've got a number of things that we want to look at. Second one is price. Now, we will come back to these as we go throughout the video. They will be reference building blocks that we'll use to anchor a lot of the conversations. But just quickly, our conversation on price. Price is an interesting one. It's a lever rather than something that we will just fix and set and forget. This is something that ideally should change over time depending on what's going on in the market. Now, some people will use pricing to discount against. Also, other people will use pricing for positioning. So to give you an example, if you sell a luxury product, but you actually give it a low price, it will position the perception of what you're offering as low price or discount. And so if you're wanting to position as luxury, you need to have a luxury price. And if you want to be positioned as discount, you need a discount price or have a price that is discounted. That's why the middle band is often the worst place to be when it comes to price, because it doesn't say anything about our product, which means it doesn't do anything for the marketing. In fact, it almost becomes an obstacle for the business. So rather than allowing your price to be an obstacle, start using it strategically to say, how is it helping me position the value of this product? Now, the third one is place. Now, place is about where. Where are you going to put your product? Where are you going to advertise your product? Where is it going to show up? Now, a large part of place comes down to who specifically you want to engage. So if you're wanting to specifically engage an audience, then all you need to say is, well, I need to be where they are. So creating a list of where they are is the first thing you should do, but you need to have a specific who, which we're going to get to in a moment, to find place. Because you can't just be wherever you want to be. You need to be specifically where the audience is. And in fact, you can put a mediocre advertisement in a place where the audience is there in a large concentration and actually get really good sales. But if you put a great ad, a great advertisement in a place where there's a very low concentration of your ideal market in that specific place, you're going to get a far lower return. And so knowing where they are is a huge part of your marketing battle. Finally, you've got promotion. And promotion, I think, is the thing that most people know about marketing. They always think that it's about the promotion. But in actual fact, this is just how we make an offer. And it's interesting when it comes to marketing that often people think that it's the sale. But sales is different than marketing. They are two different pieces of the pie. And in fact, there are different steps that you need to move through to move someone from a suspect to a lead, then through to a prospect before they're ready to make that buying decision. So promotion can be as much about moving them through those steps rather than just being about the sale. By the way, if you're liking what we're actually doing here, make sure to subscribe so you can get more episodes just like this. Now, I've talked about the 4Ps, and what I find fascinating about them is that they leave out the most important part of the marketing process, which is the market itself. So we're going to talk about who specifically you want to engage through your marketing, because if we were doing pure marketing, which is what we're not doing in this case, we could just create a desire and a need, therefore creating the market. But to do that, as I said before, it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it is the place for big movements and people who want to change the world. It's for those places where governments want to change popular opinion or civil opinion. But at the end of the day, a much easier way to go to market is to identify a market that already wants a problem solved and attach it to the product that solves that problem. And so this is product market fit. And so combining those two worlds, a large part of that is identifying the audience. And in fact, you can identify an audience and decide this is an audience I really enjoy spending time with, rather than actually spending time with, like, these is the thing I like doing is in solving a problem. In other words, I fall in love with the audience instead of falling in love with the product. And by falling in love with the audience, it allows you to create multiple products that would serve that audience. And really, it's about you becoming very good at knowing all about them. Where they are, what are they thinking about, what are the problems that they are aware of, what are the problems they're not aware of, what is their dreams and aspirations. So knowing your market becomes the difference between spending a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money, and a lot of effort to create a market and actually just connecting the two dots. Now, the purest form of audience is niche. Interestingly, a lot of people are scared of a niche because they feel like they're cutting off options. But in actual fact, instead of it cutting off options, it creates focus. And the focus of a niche gives you two really, really powerful things. Number one is it allows you to identify specifically who you want to work with, because if you're not sure who you want to work with, it makes it very difficult to do all the activities of marketing. When you're very clear about the identity of your who, then it becomes much easier. On the flip side, when you start working with that person to actually get them the outcome that they want, whether that be through product or service, then you can get more practice at delivering that outcome, which means that you get to make that outcome faster. You usually get to have it cheaper because of the way you've got good at doing it. It becomes far less risk for them because they see all this social proof of people getting the outcome, which means that because you're spending so much time practicing on the same outcome, you're actually improving your business and becoming probably a market leader within the space. Now, I've looked at all sorts of sectors. I said at the start, 237 different industries, and I am yet to find an industry that is too niche. I have people just working with locksmiths, right? And so it's very clear that there's almost no area where it is too niche. As long as you've got probably 1,000 people that you could work with, you've got enough there to form a really solid business. So let's talk about the niche. What creates a niche? Well, my model splits up into 4 pieces. And basically, you just need 2 of these 4 pieces in a specific way to get clear about who your niche is. So number 1, we have identity. This is the identity that they recognize when you say it out in a promotion. And we'll talk more about promotion later. Identity is one of them. Another is method. And we'll talk about, we'll give you examples of these in just a minute. Another is problem. And then finally, we've got outcome. And so to create a niche, you need 2 at least of these 4, but as an individual. And so 1 identity, 1 method, 1 problem, 1 outcome. So I deal with a lot of people who will say, all right, my identity is accountants, for instance. All right, there's my focus. And I help them with all sorts of different problems. I help them with staffing. I help them with their software. I help them with sales. They're helping with all these different areas. So it becomes less of a niche because then you're just broadly going to accountants, where you could go instead to accountants who are looking for talent, right? So if you just looked after the recruitment thing. So that would be 1 problem. I can't find good talent for my accounting business. The identity is accountant. So that's an example of one of each of these things. So identity one of, one of, one of, one of. Now, an example of a method, that could be a bookkeeper, right? That could be software. That could be we deliver through an application on your phone. That could it could be a specific type of service. So search engine optimization would be a method. And so let's say that we went to accountants with search engine optimization. We do search engine optimization for accountants. And I don't know why I always use accountants as the thing. I think maybe it's A in my mind. It's the one I always go to. But let's say it was cake makers, right? I do SEO for cake makers. Now, identity is interesting because you've heard me talk about the professional identity just there. Like there's the accountant, that's their profession. Cake maker, that's their profession. Candlestick maker, butcher, baker, all these different things, that's an identity. But there are multiple identities that you can speak to. The first one is someone's name, all right? So we've got name. Believe it or not, that squiggle says name. So their name is their strongest identity. So if someone screams Russell out in a crowded marketplace, I look around, right? Because it's my identity. And so it's the first thing that I hear. It's the thing I hear the loudest. Next to name tends to be people's profession, right? Maybe it's gender, but that tends to be a little bit further out. But to give you an example of the gender piece, let's say that women, right? So women who maybe the problem is, I'm going to put myself in a hole here. Women who are having trouble getting into the executive roles, right? So are struggling getting executive roles. So we just deal with women who are getting executive roles. Now, women is not really that tight a niche. It's not as specific enough, right? Because that's half the world. So we're talking about 4 billion people. I think we can get clearer in that. So, for instance, there's a group I used to work with, which is women in finance. All right, so women in finance is all right. I'm a financial executive woman, right? So suddenly I've got a more specific identity. We go name. Usually it's profession. Profession actually will trump even gender. Then probably it is gender, and then from there it's things like, let's say that we were talking to an accountant again. I'll use that same one. The guy's name's John, just because why not? His name's John. I screamed that out in a marketplace. I'm going to get a lot of people that are going to raise their hand. Depends what country I'm in. But John, his identity is accountant. So accountant's called John is even stronger. Male accountant's called John. Who knows? There could be a female accountant called John. I'm playing with this gender roles thing. I'm going to get myself in trouble. But the accounting part is the profession. Now, they could be the owner of the business. Right, so they are an owner. Now, if I scream out, who's an owner? It takes a second for even the owners, I'm an owner, to go, oh yeah, that's me, I guess. Because I think of my profession first before I actually think of that position. And so you've got accountant, then you've got owner, then you've got small business owner, right? So it's even one step further. Then maybe you've even got entrepreneur. So there's a lot of people who are like just using the identity of entrepreneur as the focus point for what they have, and people aren't hearing them because it's too broad, it's too far away from their core identity. And so understanding the core identity of the people you want to work with is a massive key to making sure that they hear everything that you say. And so again, with tactical marketing, part of the key is to get clear about not only what are the buying signals that people will actually hear, but what is the identity so they're ready to listen about the things you want to talk about. So picking at least 2 of these things. All right, we pick one. Let's say that it's an accountant, and the problem that they've got is that they can't find good people, right, from the recruitment side of things. And so that becomes a very nice niche for you to play in, which means that you say that out in a crowded marketplace. And I can tell you what, the marketplace, whether that be online, offline, just screaming out into a crowd of people, is busy. Everywhere is busy right now, but it allows us to go, all right, well, where would we get a concentration of these people? Where would we find our who's? And so I'm going to talk about the specific wheres and how to find those wheres in just a moment. But just to give you a very simple example, if we're looking for accountants who have recruitment issues, we're going to find a lot of them at an accounting association. All right. So we'll talk about where to find these people in just a moment. But understanding the power of a niche means that you might not be able to identify what your niche is today, but over time, as the longer you work within your specific area of expertise, you'll start to refine it. You'll start to identify, who do I like working with? Who don't I like working with? Who can I really get a result for? Who are willing to work with me to get a result? Because there are a lot of audiences who you can get a result with, but they're just not willing to do the work, or they're not willing to engage in the way that you would like to engage, which comes down to method. So this is niche. Understanding it is key, but even more so, understanding the audience that's behind it is going to be a large lever to you become successful in your marketing. When we eventually get to the promotional side of this video, knowing where to put that promotion is going to be key to make sure it's successful. Now, you can have a mediocre advertisement go into a place where you've got a high concentration of your market, and it will still engage people really, really effectively. Where if you put a high quality ad in a place where there is a low concentration of your market, it may not work at all. And so making sure that you actually know where your audience is, so where you should do your promotion, is a massive key. So let's talk about how you can identify where they are. Now, if you haven't identified a niche, it's going to be a lot harder. And I've had people that say, right, well, my audience is men. All right, so men of a certain age. And I go, well, what is that age? It's over the age of 40. Okay, well, there's 8 billion people on this planet, which means that there's a quarter of those people within that demographic, right? And so that's 2 billion people. And so it's too many people to find out where they are, because we need to know specifically where we can communicate with those people. So I want to know more, and that's why I want a niche, because it becomes a lot easier for you in the work that you're going to do to go, where are they? So if we know who they are, then we can identify where, and we can do it with simple Google searches. So I'll put it on here, but you'll also be able to put this into Google, and I'll show you how to do that as well. Let's say that we're going to stick with accountants, because why not? So we go accountants, so accounting. So accounting, that becomes a exact match search, which means we put little commas around it. But we're looking for accounting places where people hang out. So what are those places? Well, probably we want a location first. And so if we just want to work within our country, we might put the country. So if we want to work within our state or our local municipality or our local zip code, then we would just put the location. Now, that's another way we can do it. Now, if you can work anywhere around the world, well, you'd probably leave that off. But creating more specific niches, so you can go, right, well, there's the accountant who needs the recruitment and they're in Australia, or the accountant who needs the recruitment and they're in Denver, right? It enables us to get more focused, which means more specific, which means more people hear what we're trying to communicate. So we go the professional, the niche name, the location. We then move on to, what are we looking for? Well, in this case, there's multiple things that we're going to be looking for, but we're looking for groups of these people together. And so one of the places we can look is associations. Association. What I like about profession in particular is almost every single one has an association. But there's an association for new mothers. There's the same thing. Let's take new mothers as the identity. All right, association. There could be group, literally group. And then especially in the location, it could be network, right? It could just be the word community. Community. I love words like communication and community. I just do a squiggle through the middle. There are a bunch of other phrases that you can use that are basically synonyms of this same thing. And by doing this search, you will almost definitely find 4, 5, maybe even more places where a large concentration of these people hang out. Now, attached to that, there is usually awards, presentations. There is usually some form of media publication, right? And there is often a forum or something, or a place where people talk. So even if I take something like Facebook as an opportunity, I can look on Facebook and do, all right, accounting group, accounting network, and I will find a bunch of those places on Facebook. Now, if you've got specific questions about this, ask it in the comments. I'm interested to hear what you've got to ask about how to go about this, because I may actually have the answer and I can answer right there in the comments. So this is a really nice way of finding large groups of people, and then we just need to investigate further. One of my favorite tactics that you can use, and I think it's the first tactic I'm actually going to give you, is to go to an association with a particular niche and get to know the president of that association. Ask about the opportunities to get involved. Can I become a partner? Can I become a member? Can I maybe give a presentation? There's so many different ways that you can engage with that group. And by engaging with that group, whenever you do any marketing activities, you're going to get a high concentration of results. It is so much better to be a room where 80% of the people are your ideal market versus 20% of the people are your ideal market and 80% of people who really don't care about what you've got to offer. So that's where the tactical marketing comes in, and that's why understanding who your audience is so important to find out where they are. Now, let's say that you identify a publication. You could create articles for that publication. You could actually sponsor it, or you could actually put an advertisement or an advertorial into that publication. You could go to a forum and you can engage with the people on the forum. You could answer questions. You could engage with them there. If it was on a Facebook group, you can start connecting with those people, though some of the rules don't allow that, but many of them do, and start networking with those people. You can show up at their events, because most of them have events and conferences and summits. Show up at these events and get involved. You know, imagine you've got a room full of your ideal clients. Why wouldn't that be a room you want to be in? Well, identifying where they are is the key to making that happen. Now, identifying where those individuals are is part of market research. So let's talk a little bit more about market research, because there's a number of things that we want to know. Obviously, we want to know where they are, but we want to know about them in particular, like who are they, what's going on in their world, what are the things that they like about their current world, what is it they don't like about their world. But also, you know, who are the competitors to you out there? And there are plenty of people who look at competitors as something that they shouldn't be focusing on. And I completely agree that you shouldn't be focusing on your competitors, but you should definitely be aware of them. So there's two different types of competition. There is mind share, right? So people can have mind share over what's going on in your world. In other words, they have let's say they had a monopoly, they have the lion's share of the thinking about your product or service or solution, right? So there's mind share and there's wallet share, right? So that means that you're competing against the dollars in their wallet. So you're either competing against the space in their mind about how much they can be thinking about at any one time, or you're competing against the available dollars that are in their wallet, their bank accounts, in their life, right? And so these are the two different areas of competition to be thinking about. So it's not always going to be a direct competitor, but someone who actually takes the mind share away from what you're doing. So to give you an example, in the digital marketing space, a person who's pushing search engine optimization as the be-all and end-all for how to solve your digital marketing woes could also be stealing the oxygen from the conversation about content creation being the answer for it all. And so you have competitors so wallet share is also about the marketing dollars they have available. So SEO can absolutely be competing not just about other SEO agents or against other SEO agents. It means that they can also be competing against other digital marketing services, which would potentially replace them. And now, if the person says, no, well, you need all those things, well, then you've got only a certain amount of wallet or budget available. And so understanding who is playing in your market, especially if you've got a location-based market, but even on a global market, one of the best things I like to look at is who is the best? Who is the best within my space, within my niche, at delivering what I aim to deliver? And when I say delivering what I aim to deliver, I'm not talking about the vehicle. I'm talking about the outcome that we are creating for clients and customers, right? So whether your product creates an outcome, whether your course creates an outcome, or whether your service delivery, your consulting creates an outcome, it doesn't matter. Who is the best at creating that outcome? And then that can be your litmus test on how well you're doing. Being aware of the competition isn't about being scared. It's not going to prevent you or stop you from doing anything. It should be a really good driver to help you understand how good you can be, yeah, and also to see the gap between where you are and where that possibility is. It's kind of like the 4-minute mile. once you find people who've actually done the impossible, or what you think is potentially impossible, suddenly it becomes possible again. So looking at competitors is actually a really good way of setting your own mindset so you can see what is possible within your business. So I recommend going out there and doing the searches, doing the looking around, right? Don't do basic looking around. We want to map the market, which means identify who is out there and who's playing. Now, part of the mapping the market is the competitors, but also part of mapping the market is where people are, and then ideally, what are the other things that they're using in their world. There are a lot of opportunities with understanding that your market has other needs and wants, right? And so what are those other needs and wants? Now, it might not be right for you and your service and product, but it might be a person that you can partner with, potentially build a referral relationship with, and be a way or an avenue of getting into speaking and having those conversations with those prospects. So the more you know about your market, the more successful the marketing is going to be. That also means you're going to want to understand about what's going on out there in the world, in the environment of your market. So what contextually are they thinking about right now? What seasonally are they thinking about right now? What's going on in their lives that could affect them either not being ready to make a buying decision with you or actually being primed to do it? For a lot of people, the season of Christmas is a fantastic time to actually be bringing people into a sales conversation. For others, it's not. And so understanding where is the seasonality for your business, where is the context for your client, and to understand what is going on in the world so that you can actually navigate or make your messages more contextual to them so they feel like you understand their world. When you understand your client, when they feel like you understand your client, and when you meet them where they're at, marketing becomes so much easier. So market research is not just about looking at the size of a market and understanding if this is the right market to pick. It's about picking a market and understanding enough about it to identify which is the easiest way in. Next, we're going to talk about the process of marketing. How do you know that you're moving people through that funnel or across this board? And the 3 steps are know. In other words, they need to know who you are, otherwise they're never going to buy from you. Like, people buy from people they like more often than not. And then trust. And they just need to be able to trust that you're not going to rip them off. They're going to trust that the product can do what it says it's going to do. They trust that you are someone to work with above the other people around you. Now, if you're a consultant, if you're actually setting yourself up for the advisory position or a mentor position with people, they still need to know who you are, right? And they still do need to like you, but it's more about respect. So they need to respect that you know what you're talking about, that you are the person who's going to be able to help them get from where they are to where they want to be. And then obviously they do need to trust you as well, right? So these 3 steps are important no matter what type of marketing that you do. But let's take it one step deeper, because know, like, and trust is a little bit simplistic. It's almost, the idea is, they talk about marrying via marketing. So you walk up to someone on the street and you go, let's get married. And they look at you weird and they just walk away, right? That's because you didn't follow the process of know, like, and trust. It's the same in marketing. If you just go up to someone and assault them with an offer, if it's not contextually relevant to them, if it doesn't make sense that this is the next step for them, they're not going to say yes. And so let's say that you did meet somebody either through, let's say that you went to a dating networking event and you met someone there. Or you went to a club or wherever it was, right? But you met someone in a place that it made sense to meet somebody, to know them, all right? So we've now met somebody, okay? We've had an interaction. They now know us. It means we can, if we like, take it to another step, which is likability. Is there a mutual like, number one, and is it worth starting a courtship? Yeah. And so you might think to yourself, well, there's referral marketing in a lot of industries. Well, that's a blind date, right? Someone introduced you to a blind date. So it's the same with this know, like, trust process. You start courting. Do you like them? Do they like you? It should be a two-way street. And I think in particular in the consulting space, if it's not a two-way street, you're setting yourself up to be a service provider rather than a respected consultant. But let's put that one to the side for the second, because it's about, all right, we've got a courtship, we're understanding, how things are going. And, sometimes in business, you get lucky and you get a project with the person on the first go round. And in life, sometimes you get lucky as well. But they're not going to marry you. They're not going to engage with you for a long-term relationship unless they trust you. And so part of the courtship is small engagements to enable that trust to happen. Now, you can build that trust faster by simply making promises and keeping them. And so if you actually create a lot of promises early in the engagement with a prospect and then you keep them, people are going to assume that that's going to continue. So you'll make a promise and you'll keep it. And the more specific the promise that you keep, the better. So an example of that, a very simple example, is I will call you at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. And you call them at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. All right, that's a promise made, a promise kept. But you can even be more specific with that. And you say, I'll call you at 2:15 on Tuesday. And then you call at 15 minutes past 2. Right? So being very specific, it's memorable then that because you were so specific. And so you can create those engagements through the process to bring people into your world. So how do we bring know, like, trust? Now, as I said, we're going to get a little deeper into that. And let's say instead of know, like they know who we are, they're aware of us. Okay? So people have to be aware that you exist before you are an option for them. And to be an option, you're an option that they would consider. Yeah? So they consider you as an option, which means that they need to understand what you do, but it's not about you just telling them, it's about them becoming aware of what you do. Now, part of that's from marketing, part of that's from social proof, and if you're wondering what social proof is, that's other people talking about you. Yeah? So a lot of the awareness can actually be done not just by you, but by the reviews that you have out there in the world, or by the references people that have about you, or people highlighting you, or whatever it might be, right? So, but they become aware of you. They then understand what you do, so they're looking at your options, your vehicle, and they're considering it. And then they move to a point where they can actually decide. And decide doesn't necessarily even mean they decide to work with you. It could be decide to take the first step with you. And you may have multiple steps in your process, your buying process. You might be inviting someone to a group or inviting someone to an event. And so they decide to at least take that step. And as they take more and more steps, they become more and more engaged. And funnily enough, there's this fallacy that works in your favor here of the sunk cost fallacy. So sunk costs, which means I've spent a lot of time with this individual or this business, and so it would be weird for me to just leave the engagement at this point in time because I've already spent so much time. Now, people will still leave an engagement, and these days they'll leave faster and faster, so you've got to make these engagements valuable. But the longer they are with you, the longer that they will be likely to be with you. So again, it's kind of inertia. You know, the thing that's in motion will continue to be in motion unless something gets in the way of it. The thing that's not in motion will continue to stay still. You know, the paraphrase version. So awareness, consideration, and decision making, we're moving people through a process. And so I think the important part of this is to understand that we can't just have people decide straight away, right? We can't put an ad out there that's like, buy my expensive thing. Unless the person is already primed. Remember, we talked about the priming situation where they have been prepared to buy. This is a priming situation itself. So they're aware. We're now moving into consideration. How are we enabling them to consider us? There are all sorts of activities we can do. And as we start getting into the tactical side of the marketing, I will reference these. So these are a reference point for you to actually remember as we go through the process. And then finally, how are we making them decide to take steps? Now, decision making, let's say in the marketing, not the sales side of things. So the decision making in the marketing could be they decide to click on a link. That's a decision. They decide to download a lead magnet or a resource from a website. So they've decided to hand over their email address and their name in exchange for some free resource. Maybe they've decided to buy some small product. Maybe it's a book sale or something like that. But they're slowly engaging with us more and more. Now, there are things in sales and there are things in the business world called ascension programs, which is the idea of people step up through a ladder of activity, and they might have a free thing at the start, and then they might have a small sale, and then they might spend more and more and more with us. Now, there's people who are in love with this idea, and the reality is it's not 100% true. There will be people who will always just want the free stuff because it's who they are. There will be people who don't want any of the free stuff, they just want the big stuff. And there'll be people who just want a taste. They just want to engage a little bit, and then they're fine, they can look after themselves. So it's not just about the Ascension program, though some people will move through it. It's really the having the options, and this is where the product mix comes into it, because sometimes you want to have multiple products within a space to enable people to move through this know, like, trust process. And so know, like, trust, you just got to understand that there is a process to it, because if you walk up to people on the street and ask to get married, you're likely to get slapped. But if you follow the process of know, like, trust, you can absolutely marry them for a lifetime of marketing. Now I want to touch on branding. Now, branding is a huge topic, and so we're only going to be able to touch on it at this point, but I want you to understand it at the very least, because branding is something that a lot of people like the idea of, but once they understand a little bit more about it, they understand how big a deal it is, and for some people it can be very scary. And so they'll default to their brand being whatever their personality is. Now, there are two different types of brand. There are individual personal brands and there are business brands. And so if we think about a business brand, it is a collection of individuals and a collection of consciousnesses that actually form an entity. So one big brain. And so we have a perception about that one big brain, and we have ways that we consider it, ways that we think about it, the way we recall it within our mind. Now, that recall is what's branded on our brain. So it's the idea of, in the old days, of like branding your cattle with a hot branding iron. It's the same concept here, that there is a brand or impression that's made on our memory and our recall ability. So there are organizations that have these perceptions about them, and for every person, depending on your interaction with them, how you've experienced them, how you came to experience them in the first place, you will all have a different perception. You're going to have a very different perception of me and my business and my programs, depending on your engagement, your relationship, and the environment that it was presented to you within. All right, but basically, a business brain is a connection or a combination of all the different elements about a business. Then you've got the personal brand, which is exactly the same thing, but it's about all the different elements of that individual. Now, why brand is such a big deal is it becomes incredibly hard, if not impossible, to replicate the exact brand experience, especially of an individual. So you can kind of manufacture it a little bit with a business, because you're not often getting an experience of the inside of that organization. But if people did get an experience of the inside, there were so many different other variables. So the internal brand can actually have as much impact on how you retain and keep talent as it does to how you retain and keep clients on the external. So brand has as much marketing value in recruitment and talent retention as it does on the external side. But we're just going to talk about marketing to your prospects and clients, not marketing to your talent in this video. But understand that brand has those two aspects as well. But on the personal brand, it means that everything about you, the things that are your strengths but also your flaws, are part of that brand. And how people have experienced you, how their experience went, whether it was a positive or negative experience, what level of positive or negative that it was, all those different aspects. Which means it's in everything. Every interaction that someone has with you or of you, or an interaction they have about you, is influencing that brand. And so there are professional brand managers, and I've been a brand manager in my time, that actually work with people to manage that perception. And not only is it incredibly difficult, but you can't actually do it because every individual has a slightly different experience. You can influence it, and that's what brand management is. It's about influencing, which is why consistency is such a big deal for brand managers, because it's the consistency of delivering an impression in the same way over and over and over again, so it has relatively the same brand with everybody who comes in contact with it. With the personal brand, it shapes and moves as you do. Now, you can try to manage your personal brand, but it becomes an exhausting, near unnecessary task. It is much better to, number one, understand who you are and just start being more of that than it is about trying to hide your flaws and enhance your strengths. Some people are going to like you, other people are not going to like you. That's not the issue with brand. What I like about brand is it's a unique fingerprint. It's a unique identifier, which means that in a marketing sense, it becomes a USP, a unique selling proposition. Now, let's quickly talk about unique selling proposition just for a second. Your USP is what they used to say in the old days about, like, does your business have a USP, a unique selling positional statement, or a new unique selling proposition? And it'd be a line that people would use. And what you found over time is that people would just make their USP whatever they thought people wanted to hear. And so I remember working with an accounting practice, and I know back to accounting again, but I remember working in an accounting practice years ago, and this is where I had my first realization about this, where they wanted to be perceived as the most professional. And so they all the advertising that we did for this brand was all about professionalism. If you came and worked with them, you get the most qualified people, you get the most professional experience, and people really were attracted to that. And they came along and they shopped with that business, but they didn't stick around. They didn't really become clients. And I was trying to work out why that was the case, because the marketing was really successful. It was bringing the people in, but they weren't sticking. Anyway, I called up that company during the third time we were running the campaign, and I got a trainee on her first week who sort of answered the phone, dropped it, yelled at someone in the background, picked up the phone and said, "Oh, what?" And that professionalism would just blew up in my face. And I started to identify it wasn't just the call team on the front desk. It was all these little ways they were actually being unprofessional. And so I think importantly with brand is, do not try to be something that you're not. You can aspire to be better than you are, but don't to pretend to be something you're not. And that's why there's this real push for authenticity. But what I'm seeing people do with authenticity is actually creating the best possible front that is relevant to them, rather than, or on the flip side, just showing their flaws and calling it authentic. In actual fact, instead of just being the balanced human that they are and just being more of that. So understand what your strengths are, understand what your flaws are, right? Play into it, make light of it, make it part of the story that is you. Because at the end of the day, that unique thumbprint that is your brand is going to be one of the strongest differentiators than anything out there, because people can't copy it. Whereas the market out there that puts out the USP, it's the same statement on everyone's website, is saying, authentic performance, and our USP is our team, our people are the best. And the reality is, it just becomes part of the beige and boring waffle that happens out there in the marketing world, where everyone's saying the same thing and there's not any real differentiators. And so understanding your market, all right, so we understand the competitors out there as well. And some of the best examples that I've seen of differentiation, just in product sales, for instance, is a specific color of kettle, right? Let's talk about kettle sales. So we're pouring kettle that other people can't produce, all right? Or it has a certain lip on the kettle pour that is different than everyone else's. So they've got a comparison. They can look at one, they can look at another, and they go, "Oh, I like this one." Right? So ideally, you want it to be attractive, but the point is differentiation. It's not about being attractive. It's allowing them to see a difference between you. And so in the coaching and consulting world in particular, the big point of difference is the human that they're going to be working with. That is the same with most service deliveries, that they actually like the people that they're working with. And so they can be a big differentiator. Now, other differentiators are like price, but if it's price, let's say that you've got low price, you pretty much need to be lower than everyone else. Otherwise, it's not a point of difference. High price can be a differentiator, but with the highest price in the market, great position to be in, you may need to make less sales for more profit, and it can absolutely differentiate you. People may even perceive that you're the best, right? So there's price, there's risk. Are we a risky bet? Do we have a risky attitude? Do we need to shake things up? All right, well, we want the risky person. We want the person who's going to shake us up. Or do we want something that's trusted and reliable? All right, well, we need to be the most trusted and reliable, right? Otherwise, they're going to pick someone for that over us. And so understanding the differentiation point is about being different than it is about saying something that people may want to hear. So don't just say what you think people want to hear. Identify what you can be different as. And if you can't be different in any particular thing, then how can your brand do that for you? And that's why brand is so useful, because it can be the differentiator for you and your business. But let's talk about brand in a fuller way. Again, it can be a huge topic, and we've got all sorts of courses on it. But today I'm just going to give you the overview so at least understand the aspects that are involved. So when it comes to brand, there are three different parts of the story. There's you. Now that's you as an individual who's maybe running a solo practice, or it's you as the large multinational organization and with all its employees and all its assets. There's you. You are part of the equation, but you're 1/3 of the equation. You're not the whole equation. There is then them, and them is the market. All right, so there's you, and then there's them. And so it's not just about product market fit, it's also about brand market fit. About how does your brand fit what they want you to be, and how close, or what is the gap between those 2 points. Because here, it's role. What is the role that you want to play in their life? What is the role that they want you to play in their life? And there will be some form of gap in between those 2 places. Now, the closer you can close that gap, the closer you've got market brand fit. And so understanding that, yes, you are an important piece, and there's talking about you and the storytelling of you, and even down to the consistency of the colors that you use to present you so that there is a consistent image. But it's as much, if not more, about them and understanding how you connect to that world, right? And then the role that you're playing for them. So the role could be the product that you've got. What role does that play in their world? Your service that you offer, what role does that play in their world? Are you coaching and consulting? All right, what do they want you to be in that scenario? Now, it's not about changing yourself to be that, but it's about using brand storytelling, using marketing activities to close that gap so that they see you, there is an impression of you that is the right thing for them right now. Because at the end of the day, there are people with problems. And number one, they need to be aware that those problems exist. Otherwise, they will never seek a solution, right? That's number one. Number two is that they need to be aware that you're an option, right? And so we'll talk about this in just a moment. We'll talk about the 3 beliefs. There's actually 3+1 beliefs, but they do fit into this world of awareness. And brand fits into all the different areas. It's awareness, it's consideration, it's decision making. It is know, like, and trust. In fact, brand in particular is the essence of like. Do we have a likability? Are we connecting on the same level? Do we form that place in your mind, and are we creating an impression that enables you to recall us when you need us? And so let's talk about the 3+1 beliefs. Now, number one is that they need to believe that they have a problem, right? If they don't believe they have a problem, they're not going to seek a solution. And when I talk about the problems, often, especially smart consultants and the like, they'll know that the problem that the client is identifying is not the problem. It's kind of like you go to a doctor and you go, oh, I've got this problem with my leg. And the doctor knows that it's not just the problem with the leg, it's a referred pain. And it's actually the cause is something else. And so often you'll find consultants, coaches and the like, therapists, focusing in on the cause rather than the problem. If we were to use a different word here, it would be symptom. What is the symptom that your prospect is experiencing because they believe that's the problem that they've got? Yeah? So they have to believe they've got a problem or a symptom, otherwise they're not going to try and solve it. Number two is that they believe that you have a solution, all right? So you have something that's going to fix this problem. Now, if they don't know who you are, they'll never know that. If they don't know what you can do, they're never going to consider you. But they believe you have a solution. And then finally, they believe that you have the best solution. And when I say best solution, I'm not talking about the best quality. It's the best solution for right now. And right now could have all sorts of meaning behind it. So right now could be right now based off what I can afford. Right, I would rather this one, but right now that's the best solution for what I can afford. Or the best solution for this temporary thing I'm doing. or this best solution for the long term. It's the best solution because right now I'm looking to invest in a long-term piece of furniture, right? And so it's the best solution for me right now. Now, that's 3 beliefs. 1, 2, 3. Plus 1. What is the what is the 4th belief? Well, that you need to believe it as well. So if you don't believe in your product, if you don't believe in the transformation your product delivers, if you don't believe that your product and your service can help people get from where they are to where they want to be, you're not going to market it effectively. You're not going to sell it effectively. You're not going to convince anybody that now is the right time to make a decision. So making sure that you believe in your product, massive thing that actually are a massive determiner of success in the marketing and sales world. In fact, just as an aside to sales, if your sales team don't believe in your product, your sales will dive. And one of the ways that they cannot believe in your product is they start hearing negative reviews. Right? So sharing positive reviews is an internal marketing thing. Again, you can do with your team to help them understand that and have a belief about the products that you offer. So there are multiple ways that you can use marketing. Again, today we're going to be focusing on client generation, but there are so many different ways to use marketing, both externally within the business and internally too. So AIDA has been the building blocks for promotion ever since I've been in the game. And we have used this in the world of marketing since the days that marketing started, since it became a profession through the 1950s into the copywriting world. A lot of advertising days, of the Mad Men days. This stuff is still true. A lot of people have changed the phrasing these days, and I'll explain a little bit of that in a moment. But basically, it's still the same 4 building blocks of every promotion. The first step has to start with attention. If we're not getting their attention, we don't have time to actually spend with helping them take a next step. So the attention, which a lot of people call the hook these days, is the thing that grabs them in. Now, that attention could be everything from the concept of the ad. It could be an image. It could be a sentence or a word that actually grabs their attention. But it needs to get their attention. And once we've got their attention, they're willing to give us whatever the microseconds are available to continue to talk to them. And so we move from attention to interest. And interest is how we now start to show how this promotion is contextually relevant to the viewer, right? And so there's a really nice little acronym. It's kind of an acronym. What's in it for me? So WIFM, that you should be asking this promotion whenever you're creating anything for your market. So I want you to pretend that you are the market. You sit on the other side of the desk, so to speak, and you look at your promotion and you go, what's in it for me? Where's the value? Why should I care? And that's a great one to ask any promotion. And in fact, a tough question to ask any marketing manager, but it's a question that they should expect. What's in it for me? What's in it for the customer? I'm the customer. Why should I care? Right? And so the interest piece is doing that. It's context. It's why you should care. It's ideally talking about the symptoms and problems and why they would want to get rid of them. All right? So interest. From there, we move to desire. So this is where we're warming them up. We're actually priming them, as I've been able to say throughout this whole video. Desire gets them engaged to maybe want to take another step. They're like, all right, you're giving me reasons. You're giving me something that, as an old mentor used to say, we're giving them the thing that enables a little drip of saliva to dribble down their chin that says, oh, I want this thing. I really want it. And that's, you see a lot of television advertising around fast food in particular. They make the burgers amazing and the fries look so crunchy and all the things that's the desire part, right? Interest is like, it's lunchtime, it's time too, right? So contextually relevant. Desire is, they make it look attractive. So making sure that we know what is attractive to our audience is a large part of that as well, right? So is this going to be attractive to our audience or is it going to put them off? Yeah, these are questions to ask. So what's in it for me comes through in all of these different areas. What's going to catch my attention? You know, I remember there was an ad, an old ad that people would put out there, and it just said sex. Now that I've got your attention, and they move on from there. Well, that attention grabbing thing might grab their attention for half a second, but it's going to put off a lot of audiences. And so understanding that there are a million ways that you can grab people's attention does not mean that you need to go to old cliches. You can absolutely avoid those by going, do I know my audience? What is the thing that's going to capture their attention? Then I'm going to bring them through interest to desire. And finally, action. What is the specific action that we want them to take? And so a large part of marketing is not hoping and praying that people will know us, like us, and trust us enough to make a decision. It should have mechanisms for moving people along a pathway. I like to call it nudging. Other people like to call it nurturing. I don't like the idea of nurturing because it's not proactive. So attention, interest, desire, and action forms every element of the steps towards from a stranger to a prospect and then through the sale. We can have promotions, we can have next steps, we can have emails, we can have all sorts of different pieces of communication that have this in them. And there is another method that is exactly this, but just through a different lens, where a lot of digital marketers use these days, which is hook, story, and offer. And the hook, story, and offer is exactly this, except that story contains interest and desire. That's all it is. So in actual fact, this is a little bit more relevant to the conversation because we can break it up more. We can understand that we need to have something contextually relevant and that we need to have something that is actually going to make it desirable to take a next step. I want to have a really quick conversation about calls to action or actions. Calls to action, CTAs, is something that you might hear a lot of. Some people believe a call to action is click this button, right? Some people think it is take this step. Like they think that it's the instruction, but it's not. That is called micro copy, and it is a way to facilitate the next step, but it is not the call to action. This action should be a reason to take the step. And so whenever you're looking at the promotion, the reason to take a step should not be click here now. Right? It should be much more than that. It should be influential and convincing them to take the step. Now, there are all sorts of things in persuasion and influence that you can bring into your storytelling, and that's everything from commonality through to social proof, through to reciprocity, through to all these different aspects, which I'm not going to get into in this video. Look up Dr. Cialdini's work on influence and persuasion. And you'll find all these different aspects you can bring into an additional layer over the top of the AIDA process. But understanding this action is not microcopy, it is a reason to take action, will make a lot of difference. Now, it's all very good and well to have all these persuasion and influence tactics that you're going to use to help people make decisions. It's lovely to have nice looking marketing and have clever ideas about how it presents itself. But at the end of the day, there is a result, and there is a result of marketing that is based in numbers. So there is a number that you want to shift. Did that number shift? Was the marketing successful? So to understand, the backbone of marketing, of successful marketing, is data, and marketing in general is psychomaths, psychology and mathematics smashed together. And so what are the numbers that you should care about, and how should you be measuring your campaigns to see whether they are successful, and whether you should continue to run that campaign, and whether you should invest in the results that it's creating. Now, there are people out there that are big marketing managers in large organizations, and what they're trying to do is do brand positioning. They're trying to create enough awareness. Now, they can measure via polls, like, are people aware of us? How has that changed over time on their campaign length of time? But the majority of people who are going to be watching this video are probably going to be using digital marketing in particular to measure their success. So let's just look at a very simple digital marketing strategy that you can use in your business, and what is the data we should be looking at. So number one, there's going to be an ad, an advertisement or a promotion of some sort. Now, there are multiple different types of promotions, so we'll just open that up a little bit. There is a little matrix that I like to use that shows you how to get those people. So number one, we've got cold audiences and we've got warm audiences. So that's one of the variations. The other is we've got outreach. So we would reach out to these people. And the other is attract. All right, so we'll attract these people. Now, if we look at the intersection of this matrix, we've got, let's say I'll use that one. Cold attract is going to be things like paid ads. All right. So that ad in that case would be a paid ad. We're going to an audience that doesn't know us yet. We're going through a channel where they've never met us, and we're going to attract them. Right? So that could also be something like an article in a newspaper, an article in a publication of some sort. It's to an audience who doesn't know us yet. All right, so that's the thing. Warm attract, that's going to be things like people who are already connected with us. Now, they might not be a lead yet, they're just connected. And so connected would be like social content, content in general. But it's to those people who are in our world already. So social content becomes one of those options. Maybe it is things like YouTube. You know, that's a place where we can engage with. In fact, it's almost like YouTube subscribers. They're already connected to us in some sense. Then we've got warm outreach. That's going to people who are in our world. So how would do that? Well, we can chat to those people via the social media platforms. We can connect via like LinkedIn. So connection. Would be an example of that. So connecting and speaking to those people. Another example might be email, right? So we've got them on an email and we might send a campaign out via that. So an email in itself can be an advertisement to take a step. Now, the cold outreach, is going to be cold calls. So cold calls, that can absolutely be the connections, the initial connection. So the initial connection that you make via social media. But then the conversation start, actually I might change that to conversation start. So we'll call it chat start, right? Is the method. So there's all these different ways that you can run some form of promotional ad. And again, thinking about AIDA in the process, excuse me, is going to enable you to make these more effective. That being said, sometimes these advertisements do not need to be markety, right? It's just what do we need to help people take a next step? One of the most simple ways, created by Dean Jackson, who is a fantastic copywriter, he created the 9-word email, which is, I've got a thing, do you want a thing, basically. So I've got this thing for this specific audience. So I've got a thing, it's almost like interest, and then desire. So it is for a specific audience that does a specific outcome. Would you like the details, right? So very simple email. It doesn't have the depth of like having a create a hook and all the rest of it. We're using relevance to actually do the work. But again, that can be a promotion. So that's just a simple email model. So we have an ad, and then I'm going to use the funnel framework or the digital funnel framework to show you how we're being successful or not. So the ad goes to, let's say, a landing page. So we'll say use LP for short, landing page. There is a certain number of people here that come through this ad. And then on this page, we have an offer of some sort. So there's a number of things that we want to measure here. First one is, what is the percentage of people that actually clicked through on this ad? Now, in an article in someone else's publication, that may be difficult to measure. But if we can measure it, it'd be fantastic. Number one, what's the size of their readership? All right, that's one way of working it out. It's like when people send out flyers. They used to send out flyers. They still do. We still get junk mail in the mailbox. The average conversion rate on those sort of things was 1 in 10,000 back in the day, right? But it's still a number that we can actually use as a reference point. Now, with digital marketing advertising, we want to be better, so above 1%. And so really greater than 1%. So can we get better than 1% conversion rate, which means 100 people see that ad and at least one of them click, at least? We can go much higher than that, 2-3% sort of conversion rate on ads is not uncommon. Then we move them to the offer, and based off this offer, there could be a free offer, it could be making a step, it could be the smallest possible sale. It doesn't matter what it is, but what was the conversion rate on the people who took the offer? Now, you can go one step further. You can go, all right, well, let's say that 10% of people took up this offer. And, all right, that means that, like, of 100, so we've got 100 people had to see this ad to click on it, right? And then That means one person got there, so we'll need 10 people to get here for one to convert. And then they go to a thank you page, right? And the thank you page, is that next space. Now, as I said in a recent video, and if you haven't seen it, go and have a watch of it about lead magnets. There's no such thing as a thank you page anymore. We have offer to, and then we have another conversion rate on that. And sometimes the offer to conversion rate is higher, right? Because people are actually engaged in the process at this point. But there are no more thank you pages. So there's always measurement points. So what's the percentage of that step? Now, I don't care whether you're using a digital funnel or whether you're using like Facebook groups are an interesting one. I invite someone to a Facebook group. How many of them take that up? Once they get into the Facebook group, how many of them take the next step that we've got there available for them? All right, that's another one. How many people do I invite to an event? How many people register for the event? How many people show up at the event? Right? It doesn't matter. Now, there's not always 3 steps. Sometimes there's 10 steps. Sometimes there's 50 steps. Depends on the complexity of your marketing campaigns and the depth of them. Frank Kern, who I learned a lot of the advertising stuff from, he has campaigns that he runs that might have 13 to 26 steps in them, and then he just tack on another one on the end of that and another one on the end of that. So people are infinitely rolling through his funnels, right? And so it's about, can you improve the changes in this simply by looking at what's on the page and what can I change to improve it? So in the old days, we're talking about in the 90s when I first started, we did a lot of direct mail, which means that someone would craft an offer and they would create a print-based piece and they would mail it to somebody, and it would take a week for that to happen, probably a week to create the creative. So you've got 2 weeks already there. It gets mailed out. Someone reads the offer. Actually, it's this one here. They read the offer. They go, do I want to take advantage of that offer? And they would mail back a return envelope with saying yes. So it's an opt-in, right? People land on that. They receive all the opt-ins. So someone's opted in with an address, said, yes, send me the thing. We send them another one that has the next offer on it. Would they like to take advantage of this thing? That then goes out to them. It's another week, and they send back, and that's another week, and a certain percentage of them say yes. Now, back then, it was hyper important to know your numbers because you had a 4-week lead time to see if something worked. Now, this process in a digital space takes 4 minutes. And so you can test faster, but you need to have enough throughput, enough people to go through here to say, was it a valid test? Now, there's a myth that 1,000 people coming through these things is a valid test, but there are a lot of digital marketers who agree with that. We want 1,000 people to have clicked on this ad to see if this is any good. I like having a minimum of 100, that have clicked on the ad, at least a couple of thousand that have seen it, right? So do we have enough people coming through to say that the test has been made? And then if we want to improve it, how do we go about improving it? Some people will change the entire offer. They'll take the offer out. They'll replace it with something new. I think that that's dangerous. The way that I work on my offers in the digital space is as long as they are getting 16% conversion rate in the offer, I will work to improve them. And I don't really have any offers, unless they're brand new, sitting at less than 30%. And I've got some that are actually at 80% conversion rate. So improving these conversion rates for me is an exercise in small experiments. So small little steps that you would take. Maybe I change the call to action. Maybe I change the image. Maybe I change the headline, right? Maybe I change the bullet points. So small little activities to actually test and measure these activities. Small little activities to test and measure the activities. That's what I said. Now, there are marketing professionals who came from university and they joined a large organization and that's all that they know. And so a lot of those people have not been exposed to direct mail. And so often they will do an activity hoping that it will work. And if it works, fantastic. If it doesn't work, not fantastic. And they'll have 3-month campaigns and 6-month campaigns. And they have too long a time to be able to have these experiments run on a quick basis. This sort of stuff you can have run, and within 3 to 5 days, you know whether it's working or not. The challenge with a lot of big brand shifts is you've got this large ship and you're trying to turn it around, and it's hard to actually do the experiments and do the tests. But you can find ways to do it. And so even in a big organization, I recommend finding small ways to test measuring, whether that's through digital funnels or other small engagement activities that allow you to move fast, allow you to move more nimbly, enabling you to say, what are they more likely to engage with, right? So it's a large part of the process. You need to know your numbers. How can you measure it? And then how are you scientifically, to a degree, doing experiments to ensure that you're improving those numbers so that you're getting better return on investment. Now, I want to show you why return on investment is such a big deal. Now, all marketing is not just about lead generation, okay? We want to bring people from a person who could into a lead, into a prospect, and obviously set them up in the best way to be primed for a sale. Now, there's also the other end where we can actually do marketing to retain clients and to help them take some next steps, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But return on investment is really crucial for the lead generation side of your business. So let me pull the board over again and we'll get into that. So back when I was talking about this ascension idea where we can get someone's email address or contact details, maybe we sell them something small, then we're going to sell them something much larger. Not only is that not necessarily the way that we go, but they're also not necessarily connected. And so this is a lead. This is not even a qualified lead for the big thing, but it's a customer lead, right? Now, let's say in this scenario, we have these three boxes, not in a staircase, but actually just next to each other. And we've got our email address, we've got our small sale, and we've got our bigger sale. Again, there is a natural thought that there should be some form of progression between these things. Now, there can be, but there doesn't have to be. The crucial part about this is the ability to actually get a lead in order for us to continue to communicate them. Now, we want that to be a good lead, which means that it's a qualified lead. It's someone that we believe will take advantage of our offers in the short term. But it doesn't have to be connected to this price point for it to be a good lead, right? So we get the lead. So in understanding that, a lot of people believe that this lead has to make sense to actually work towards the larger offer, that they have to be somehow connected. Now, they can be connected, but they don't have to be connected. And so what we want to do is we want to generate leads, right? So that people become aware of us, and then we take them to a consideration step. So getting that lead becomes a large part of the process. And if we can get a lead at a cost that then becomes cost neutral, then we actually have a self-liquidating marketing offer in a way that means that we have basically infinite leads to at least the size of the market. So if it's 1,000 people in that tiny audience I said, then the total 1,000. But in most audiences, there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of opportunities in the market. So if we can generate a lead at a cost that is cost neutral, then we're good to go. So often there is a small product created just to create a self-liquidating offer. So someone comes through a lead and enough people buy this to become customers so that the actual cost of advertising is actually paid for in the sale. So let's say that on average, which is how we can work out a lot of these numbers, because it does work out on average. Let's say on average, it costs $10 to get a lead to come here. And on average, people buy this product for an average of $10 because a bunch of people won't buy it. Some people buy more. It needs to be at least $10 to be getting 100% conversion rate, which is very, very unlikely. So let's say it was 1% conversion rate. Well, it's a $1,000 product. One person buys that. That pays for all the leads. It means that we have an opportunity to continue to work with that person over and over and over again. So that is called a 1x, right? 1x return on investment. Now, some people are getting $20 for every $10 lead they get, and then we've got a 2x. Some people are getting 3. I've seen people get 7 and even up to 20 times return on investment. Now, most of those people don't have a lead who can buy another product, and most of those people are actually selling a one-time offer. And so making sure you have products, a suite of products that enable a marketing mix, and we'll talk about the customer journey in just a moment, are a large part to making sure that this lead strategy is successful. Because just getting a lead who can only buy a product once is not very useful. But if we can get a lead who can buy again and again and again, then it means that the lifetime value, of that client becomes much higher. And so if you know what your lifetime value of a client or a customer is, then ideally you can spend all the money up to the profit that you would get out of that to have a business that continues to run. So if you want to improve that, then we just need to actually get a new customer on average for less than the profit in the lifetime value, and we will have an increasingly growing business. And so we do need to look at the data. We do need to understand what we're working with so that we can understand a few numbers. Number one, lifetime value. What is the average amount of money that people will spend in their lifetime of working with you? Some people go, what, you mean over their entire lifetime? I usually look at what is the average amount of time that people work with you. And that could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, it could be 6 months, right? But whatever it is for you, maybe it's like 1 sale, 10 sales, 3 sales. That could be the lifetime value. But whatever it is for you, you work out your average and then you go, right, what dollar figure is that? Now, we can then work in different ways to remarket and market after the fact to these people to have them buy more. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. Customer retention, ascension, and cross promotion. But if we can acquire these people in a way that it is profitable to do so, we can keep investing in it. So this is return on investment. This is, you got the cost per click, but then you got the cost to acquire a customer, which is CAC, which has the unfortunate acronym of being CAC, right? So that's your CAC. This is 2x CAC, right? This is lifetime value. We're not going to get too deep into the digital marketing side of this and all the acronyms and all the nonsense that you can talk about. But in essence, if you can capture a lead in a way that it's going to be cost neutral or better, that's called self-liquidation. If we can capture a lead and then capture a client in a way that we make profit from every lifetime value, on average lifetime value from the people that we work with, then we have a profit creating business. And then we can work those numbers and those levers, and so we create more and more profit, and we know how much to invest in this specific marketing activity. And so lack of accountability around return on investment is one of the big reasons why a lot of people look at marketing as being an expense rather than an investment, because they actually can't see how the investment pays a return. And so if we want to actually look at that and find out what is our budget, what is the budget we should be spending on marketing, we really have to have those numbers in place to ensure that we are spending in a place that we are going to get some form of return on our investment. Now, if you ask all sorts of marketing people how much you should be investing in your marketing, a lot of people will say 10%, 15%, 20% of turnover. But there's no reason or rhyme behind that at all. And so what I did years ago is I asked every marketing person that I could get my hands on how they go about creating a budget. And unfortunately, almost every single one of them came up with that answer, until I realized that the marketing budget is based on the sales conversion. So let me give you that number now. Now, to effectively create a marketing budget, you're going to need some form of conversion rate. Now, in tactical marketing, we're almost always going to be looking at sales conversion, because it's what is the conversion rate of taking a prospect and moving them into a customer or client. But marketing dollars are also spent on other reasons, like there is brand positioning, for instance. There is sentiment in the market. There is reputation management. There's a number of other things that we do that don't have as a firm a return on investment. But there should be some way of measuring we're going from here to there. Like we're actually calling our shot. We're making an experiment. And then after doing enough of those experiments, you really start to get a sense of what is your benchmark conversion rate or effectiveness of the marketing dollars that you're spending. And so I'm going to start with sales because it's an easier one to look at, and it's the one that's going to give you the best return on investment for your money. So we're going to look at sales. We've got a sales percentage. And let's say, for instance, just to make it easy on me, that our conversion rate is 33.3% conversion, which means 1 in 3 people convert to a sale. So 1 in 3 prospects convert to a sale, which means that we need 3 prospects for every customer sale. All right. Now, that means we just need to go, right, well, so that's the conversion rate times the prospects. How many prospects do we want to create? Now, if we want one sale, obviously we need to create 3. But if we want 10 sales, right, then we need 30. If we want 100 sales, then we need 300. So 300 prospects at 33%, 33.3% is actually going to give us 100 customers. Yeah? And so this is how we can work our budget back, because it's like, what is the cost to get 300 prospects? And over time, let's say you're starting, you've never done this marketing before. The idea is to basically do experiments and keep a log. And that over time, you'll be able to identify what is your average, what is your benchmarks, what can you expect by doing this action, what can we expect as a return. So if we know our cost to acquire a customer, we can also look at a cost to acquire a lead. And so if we look at these as prospects or leads, we can say cost to acquire a prospect. So CAP, cost to acquire a prospect, we can define that dollar simply by the average of the prospects we get and the marketing dollars we spend. That being said, there are so many ways to not have to spend money when it comes to marketing. One of the best examples of this is Richard Branson with the Virgin label. A lot of the things he did early days were very grassroots, and then they were quite extreme after that. But they were stunt-based activities to get noticed. So he would put himself on hot air balloons and put himself out in the Atlantic so that he would be all over the news, so that he would get press time. Now, you don't have to do some crazy stunt to get on the air. You don't have to do a crazy stunt to get on television or the radio or in print media. You can actually just like submit a good press release. You can actually engage them with really useful content that they know that their watchers, readers, listeners are going to engage with. So PR, public relations, is one of the great places where you can actually spend time rather than money and get a massive return. You can also, contacting people doesn't have to cost anything other than your time. Now, your time does have a cost, and you should be measuring that time and the cost of that time so you can work out what is your effective hourly rate. But at the same time, when you're starting a business, you've got more money than you do... flip that. You've got more time than you do money. And then later on, you've got less time and more money. And so that's why you create a marketing budget, because you're actually paying down against the time availability that you've got within the business. And that's why people, when they want to grow their business, they'll invest in people. And even investing in people is part of a marketing budget. So your spend isn't just about advertising. It's also about the people who are coordinating your activities. It's about potentially your marketing assistant that you've got inside the business. There is a cost to their time, and that should have a return. Yeah? And so to work out what your marketing budget is, ideally all you just need to work out is how many sales you want, what is the conversion rate to sale from prospect, and then how much does it cost to get that many prospects. So finally, I want to talk about customer retention, because now that we've acquired a customer, we want them to buy over and over and over again. And so let's say that we've got the sales and marketing process, so S&M process, and we through the sales and marketing process, or the marketing and sales process, we actually acquire a customer, and then there is delivery. Now, I think it's important for us to understand that there is crossover, because the onboarding process for the delivery is as much about the marketing and keeping the promise as anything else. It's not just about the end step. And so onboarding people with marketing activities and keeping the communication lines open is a large part of being a successful service and product deliverer. So we have them they start a good experience. We deliver, we get them a result, right, through the process. A large part of that is understanding that if we're doing working on a service, that we're getting an outcome, that the product is working effectively for the reason that it was purchased, whatever it might be. Continuing to improve our product with our customer on the inside. Now, why I make a point about that is that when you start a business and you have a new product, there is no point improving the product without the customer. if you've got clients who are out there who are not buying, it's not the product that's a problem, it's the label that's on the product. It's like the equivalent of a can. We've got a can that's got no label. We don't know what it is, all right? We add our marketing or our promotion or our offer to the outside of the can. It has specific labeling on it, and people will decide based off the label whether they're going to purchase it or not. Now, if they don't purchase it, let's say nobody purchases it, it's not what's in the can, it's what's in the label, right? So what's on the label? And so we get rid of what's on the label and we change it until it actually matches the audience, as long as we're keeping the promise of the delivery. Then we bring people through the process, onboarding correctly, getting them the result, and continue to prove that way, improving the product from the inside with the client. So how can we improve the speed of delivery? How can we improve the ease of the delivery? How do we improve the experience? Okay, so we've got this delivery overlap with the sales and marketing. But when we deliver, that's not the end of the story. There is almost always a next sale. So I'm going to call this next, but what we're talking about is continuing to market to go, all right, well, we have a problem solved, or we're getting a problem solved, which almost always creates a new problem. So let's say that the problem that they wanted solved was that they weren't able to get leads, okay? So we solved that problem, and now they have leads. And now they're like, well, I have these leads, I'm not able to convert these leads. And so we help them convert the leads. And then they get the leads and they've got customers and they don't know how to deliver, and we help them deliver the clients. And then once they've got delivery, it's like, well, what's the next thing? Well, we don't have capacity. And so we help them with capacity and team and all the other things. And this can go endlessly. You just need to decide what area you want to focus in and stop there. And, we'll eventually get them to as many outcomes as we like. We just get to choose what outcomes we want to focus on, what part of the journey. So making sure that you've got, yes, sales and marketing will get people in the door, but it doesn't stop there. We continue with the onboarding. We make sure the experience is great. The result and our product is a huge part of our ability to much easier, or in a much easier way, do marketing in the future, because as we improve our product, we continue to get reviews, we've got social proof, and it means that we get referral business on top of everything else. So referral marketing, really nice marketing, but the other thing that I love about this is, let's say that you get 100 clients this year, and then the delivery's poor or whatever it is, we don't sell them the next thing. All right, well, we've got to get another 100 clients next year. And we're just going to keep doing that every year until the day we die. Or we go, all right, well, we've got 100 clients this year. 50% of them want to make a step to the next space, and we're going to get 100 clients the next year. Suddenly we've got 150 clients. And then, let's say that we improved our situation a little bit, so it's better than 50% retention. Suddenly we've got, all right, well, in this case, we now have 75 people. Actually, I'm going to make this easy on myself. Let's say we kept our original 50 and we kept 75, and then we get another 100. And then suddenly we've got 225. All right. So the point being that this is how we grow. We grow not just by going, this worked once, and just resting on those laurels. We grow by going, this worked, and now we can turn the machine and practice with the business clients that we've got. And so as people go through your process, you're looking to improve your process. You're improving your communication. You're improving your onboarding. You're making sure you're clear about the next steps, the next problems that they need solved, so we can work them into that next step and continue to basically work with them for a lifetime of business. Now, there's another aspect to this which I want to quickly talk about, highly relevant to the people who work in the transformational space. And when I say transformational, I don't mean woo-woo magic. I'm talking about people who take people from here to there, wherever that might be. So a lot of consultants, certainly a lot of therapists, coaches, service providers of all sorts. There is a thing called the hero's journey. And I believe it is an incredibly useful framework and narrative for you to understand what's going on for the client so that you can design the journey appropriately. Now, this is for anybody who will work in an advisory or a mentoring space with their prospects and clients. Basically, the hero's journey is normally a circle, but I like to make it a little bit of a broken circle, and I'll show you in a minute why. There is people, this is a person, and they're going through their daily life. And then suddenly there is a call to adventure, which funnily enough is the same as call to action as we spoke about before. Something happens which starts them on a journey. Now, they're currently sitting in their known world. It's known. They're used to what's going on around them. And something tickles the back of their ear. And I like to think of this as feather, brick, and truck. A little feather tickles their ear and goes, it's time to get moving. It's time for you to change. It's time for you to do something different. And that could be something that someone said. It could be your marketing that actually did it. It could be lots of different things. It could be something they saw on the news, but something said, I think I've got to do something about this. Now, for those sophisticated people will tend not to take that advice, and they'll go, no. I'm a cautious individual. I don't need to change. And then a brick will come along and whack them over the back of the head and go, it's time to change. And that could be an incident or a catalyst, or whatever it might be. There are some stubborn folks, who won't change even then. And so they'll continue to deny the call. And so that's what happens. Like the feather brick truck, they'll deny the call until the truck comes along. It's kind of like, I had a heart attack, I'm in hospital, I now need to change my way. Truck comes along and moves them to accept the call. So there's three ways they can accept the call. They can accept it either the feather, the brick, or the truck. It'll happen eventually. Once they accept the call, the mentor appears, and they are the guardian from the known world to the unknown world. So when I say transformation, it could be anything from need to learn something new, I need to understand how to do something new, but something new. I'm here, I need to go there, I have never been there before. The mentor meets them there and then helps them cross the threshold, which is this line here, into the unknown world. That's your sales process, right? That's how that works. People will have a call to adventure or a call to action. They'll deny it until they accept it, and then they will be happy to actually work with you. From there are things that happen. There are trials, right? They cross the threshold, then they experience trials. They meet allies, and they experience enemies, right? And that could be allies, the tools that you give them, the learnings that you give them. The enemies are the things that are hard for them to achieve or hard for them to overcome. Now, in this path, the mentor being a smart individual, because if you are doing this as a consultant, you understand that there will be some challenges for this person. You understand that at some point, they need to experience a catalyst moment where they fight their demon, they fight their dragon, right? That needs to happen for them to get an outcome. It's the reason why they haven't got this outcome so far is because they haven't done the hard thing, whatever the hard thing is. Now, on the way to the dragon, there is all these bones on the ground of the dead heroes that have tried to fight the dragon before. And this is on the way to the cave. And this is called the approach. And as you approach, there is some fear. And that's to be expected because there's bones and stuff and there's a cave. All right? So that's going to happen, and they're going to be a little nervous about taking the step. And that's where you as the mentor are there to support them to be the hero, to have what they need to take the step. Now, they might not be 100% confident, but you help them take the step in the best possible way so they can slay their dragon. And in slaying their dragon, they actually get, this is a little trophy, they get a reward of some sort. So there needs to be a reward for doing hard things. If you're working in the transformational space, that needs to happen. So if you're in the service space, same thing. Understand that a lot of these services that people are experiencing, when you just do the service without the client, they do not see the value. They do not see the hard work. They do not understand how good it was. And sometimes you have people complaining that, oh, is that all? Oh, you could have given me the software and I could have clicked a few buttons and done that for you. But if you have them experience you, if you actually help them be part of the journey, then they will feel the reward at the other end. And in fact, in doing that, they will return successfully into the known world. And funnily enough, they will ascend to become another person. They are now a person who can do the thing that the past person couldn't do. So they actually become a new person. And on the way to return, their identity changes, and now this is a little king's thing. That it's the slave who became the king, it's the boy who became the magician, whatever it might be. But they return to this normal world. Now, if you are not there as the mentor to help them with this process, they will get disillusioned that the normal world is either different than what they remember, or why are things suddenly harder, or they go through a bit of a dip. Often after an adrenaline rush like the success of achieving a thing, they will start to feel, no, is that all it was? Oh, I was so excited. I wish it was more. Like, things aren't what they used to be. Whatever it might be. There's so many different ways that this shows up and manifests. But basically, we want to remember that they're now a new person, which means there's going to be a new call to action for whatever's next. And so we want to be here. This mentor is back over here again to talk to them about their new experience and help them on their next path with it, which again spirals out. And so this is the opportunity for you as the business owner who is not just having marketing that is done to engage new clients. It's also in the understanding that this is a process where you can bring marketing into it through the process and out the other side, so that you're actually helping them take whatever is the natural next step into your next offer. And that way you keep clients long term. You keep clients for a lifetime of business. This is the hero's journey. The hero is not you. You are the mentor. The hero in this story is your client, and you are going to enable them to complete their journey so that they can transform. Now I'd like us to bring all this together and actually show you how to make a marketing plan. And there are all sorts of one-page marketing plans out there. You can pretty much type that into Google and find something on the internet. But I created one a few years back. I find it to be very, very useful. I call it Acorns, and I'm going to show you how to do it on the board. So the Acorns process has 6 steps, and as you can imagine, it's an acronym. So Acorns, right? And the A really relates to my hyper focus on the audience. And really, it's about deciding, all right, for this marketing campaign, which audience are we focusing on? Now, there is nothing wrong with having multiple markets in your business, but do understand that it means you're going to have to spend multiple amounts of energy to engage with those different markets. All right, that's the point of like why we would ever niche to one market, is because it becomes much more streamlined in the energy output, whether that be money we're spending or time and energy that we're spending. Right, for each of the campaigns that I want to run, I want to identify which audience I'm actually going after, because it allows me to create some focus for who specifically we're talking to, and it helps answer the questions that come after. So number 1, we've got audience. Number 2, we've got context. And so I want to know, for the period of time that I'm going to be running this campaign, what is the context for my audience? What's actually going on for them? And I usually have a 1, 2, and 3 different things that I at least need to note about their world. So what's going on for them personally, in other words, within their, generally within their industry or within their space, what is happening at this time, what's happening globally, what's happening around them, yeah? And what is the relationship between you and them? In other words, what is the context between you? Like, how do they know you? Do they not know you? How do they see us currently? So understanding that context is a big step to know how to connect with that audience where they're at. Third one is outcomes. And so what is the outcome that this audience is looking for? And so there's 2 aspects to outcome. On one side, you've got the outcome that they want. And on the other, you've got the symptom that they're experiencing. And I say symptom all the time because often it's not the cause and not the real problem that's preventing them from getting the outcome. There are all sorts of roadblocks in their life, some of them that I'm not even aware of. But there are symptomatic issues that they're experiencing. So I want to know, what are the symptoms? And there's usually multiple symptoms that are actually causing them from not getting an outcome. And then what is the specific outcome that they actually want to achieve? And the more specific you can get with this, the better. The more tangible you can get with this, the better. So to give you an example, working with clients in the consulting space where I do, often there's this idea of like, we will help you create a successful business, right, as an outcome. But what does that mean? what is success? And so having to define, like, right down to the tangible, what does success look like? And then potentially go even further down to what is a small step on the way to that can help you get more specificity around that outcome. So an example of maybe what is success is working maybe 4 days a week, okay? Maybe it's 3 days a week. It depends, again, on the context of the individual you're speaking to. But if I wanted to go, if I knew that my audience wanted to go from 5 days to 4 days a week, then that's an outcome that I can focus on and then step them from the symptom, which is I'm working too much. I don't have time to see my family. I'm working outside of hours. I'm working on the weekend. There are all sorts of symptoms, that are causing or that they're experiencing that are not allowing them to hit their outcome. Okay, so we need to know what the outcome is, right? Then I want to know what is the roadmap. What is the process that we're taking them through? And I've talked about the hero's journey, and that's really a large part of it. But it's about you tangibly putting out the process from where they're at, where they're not happy, to where they want to be, where they've got an outcome. What are the steps that we need to take them through? Number one, to engage with us, and then to actually get the result. I want to know what this is so I can identify within this campaign, what step are we moving people through? There are campaigns that are multifaceted that can move people through multiple steps, but they're almost like multiple mini campaigns inside a large campaign. Ideally, there should be one focus of each campaign, which is to move people from here to there, wherever that is. So we want to identify where there is. So that's the roadmap. The next one is, what are the, I call this nudge. A lot of people call this nurture. But what are the nudge steps? What are the activities that we can actually do to move people? And so really this is, what are the catalysts to move people from one step to another? We can't expect that people will take the action. We need to make sure that we're presenting opportunities for them to take the action. And I like it to be catalyst invites. So I like to invite people to next steps. And so making sure that you're proactively inviting people to those next steps is a large part of having successful marketing, because people will take steps if they are offered them. Now, I want to give a little caveat to that. There is some psychology around this, which is quite useful. So to give you an example, if you showed up at my house and I said, would you like me to cook you a dinner, right? You might say, oh, no, don't go to the trouble, right? And a lot of people are making these big plays in their marketing, like, would you like me to do this big thing? We can do this big thing for you. People are like, no need to do that. Yet, if I walk to the door and I answer the door and I had a pack of chips in my hand and it's already open and I'm eating one and I go, would you like one? It's almost rude to say, like, no, unless, there's a reason why, gluten-free issues or whatever it might be. But you're more likely to put your hand and go, sure, and you take one. That sort of nudging or catalyst invites is a great way to help people take next steps, which is to say, we're already doing this thing, would you like to join us? I've got this thing that's ready, would you like a copy? Would you like to have a look at this thing that I'm doing, right? So I'm doing a thing, not that I'm going to do, it's in movement, and would you like to get on board? There's real value in momentum. And so if you can create momentum and then the perception of momentum so that people see it, it can be really valuable for people to follow and say yes to these invitations. And so what are the steps that you're going to use to move people from here to there? What are the actions that you're going to use? And then finally, what is your schedule? Ideally, I like to either create a weekly piece. Let's say that we're doing a 4-week plan and we've got all the days of the week in it. And I don't even know if that's the right number, but there you go. We've got our weekly plan. We're saying we're going to do this day, this that day, and then actually plan everything into the schedule. Now, the other way you can do it is sort of a Gantt chart style thing, which has got, it's a long form piece. We've got multiple weeks, and we'll have a list of activities. And in that activities, we might block out this chunk of the week for this activity, and then there's going to be some crossover with this next activity, and then there's another activity that goes out here. Another way to plan it out. But to have a schedule so that you are following a schedule so that life doesn't get in the way, you actually make time for these activities to happen, is key. Often when people, especially when they start marketing, they're not used to the speed of action that is needed usually early on in a campaign, because they're thinking that they've got a lot of time. They might do a 13-week campaign, which is a quarterly campaign. and they might go, well, I've got 13 weeks, I'll get to it. And they leave it for 6 weeks, and suddenly they've got 7 weeks left, and then they're scrambling to try and catch up, and often those plans don't get made. But once you schedule these things out, you can see the importance of doing step 1 to enable you to do step 2, to enable you to do step 3, and you can also look at the calendar for more context. So an example is, will this go through a public holiday? Will this actually seasonally change from where I am now to where I want to be? Is it going to affect things? So for instance, here in Australia, Christmas downtime is a big thing. It's actually bigger than most other countries. Funnily enough, Easter downtime is becoming even a bigger thing. People are taking almost 4 weeks off in the corporate world around that time of year as well. So understanding what's going on again in their context and where you can make sure that you're going to be communicating them is a really effective way to do it. So this is just a simple 1-page planning process, and this will just help you get clear about the marketing activities you're going to take. If you've made it to this part of the video, I want to say congratulations. It means that you are taking your marketing seriously, which means you're far more likely to be successful. So if you're wanting help with the specifics of your marketing, whether that be questions answered or support in actually delivering it, you can absolutely reach out. Now, there are multiple ways to do that. Number one, consultingquestions.com will allow you to put a question in, and I answer questions live every week on Consulting Talk Live. And so if you've got marketing questions there, you can absolutely ask those questions at consultingquestions.com. But if you want more direct help, you can absolutely reach out. Go to russellpearson.com and you can connect with me, and there are all sorts of programs that I run and courses that I deliver to help you understand with a little bit more depth how to specifically run that marketing and get a result. The other opportunity is to go to russellpearsonprograms.com, where you can find free resources really designed for consultants and advisory businesses to help you build a successful consulting practice. While I've given you pretty much everything that you need from a marketing point of view, understand that there are infinite combinations on how you can deliver your marketing, which means that there is you, whether it be just the individual who is you, or whether that is you as a team. There are strengths and weaknesses. There are things that you are very good at, the things that you struggle with. There are resources you have or lack that provide the first element of the combination in the marketing mix. The other is the audience itself and the way they want to be approached, how they engage with people, how they buy, and at the end of the day, how they communicate. And so with those two worlds, there is an infinite combination on how you can play your marketing game. And so really it's about, number one, first taking the time to understand your market and work with the market. In fact, marketing is a done with you event, especially when you're doing tactical marketing, because once we understand our market enough, we know how to meet them where they're at, and then by continuing to communicate with them to understand what it is that they need to make the decision to take the next step. And so there is all sorts of things that we can do to help that. There are all sorts of things that we can do to prime that, but we can't make the decision for them. At the end of the day, not everybody is going to move into our world. Not everybody is going to take the invitational steps that we provide. But that's the marketing game. That is what it's all about. It is a numbers game. At the same time, it is a psychology game. It's psychomaths, right? And that's what makes this game so much fun. And so for you, now, if you want to start getting your marketing moving, the opportunity is action. It's not about just thinking about it. It's not just about planning about it. It's about getting involved with your audience so that you can meet them where they're at, so you are in a conversation with them. So it's much easier when you're talking to those people to understand what they need to take the next step. When you're not talking to them, when you're just behind a door, coming up with marketing plans and plotting and scheming and then throwing them out into the market and just seeing what happens, it's a guessing game, and all you've got then is the data to respond to. So my advice is, with all your marketing, if you possibly can, especially early days in the business, make sure you're speaking to your market as part of the process, because it'll give you a fantastic opportunity to learn everything you need to know. My name's Russell Pearson. This is episode 118 of the Your Consulting Business podcast. If you like what we're doing here, make sure you hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you get notified when the next show is available. Until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.